Hello, everybody, and welcome back to what is always a pleasant time talking with my man Dux, because Dux, you have been on the road. There's
That's
no
right.
hiding it.
So, believe it or not, I was on PTO and I was in Tokyo last week for a big family reunion. It was a great time.
And I know that Dux was on the road because he was tweeting out pictures of all sorts of crazy things. And I was like, you know what, Dux, send me some of that, just somewhat jokingly. And here in the flesh, showed up today, are the craziest. These are all Kit Kats that I could ever imagine, and I didn't want to eat them on the show, but I have sampled every single one, Dux.
So, which one's your favorite? So I sent sake and a matcha tea,
Which is this one,
mint,
which is
and
this one.
there's another one. I think honeydew or melon
Yeah,
or
there's a
something.
melon, which might be this guy. Then there's this strawberry looking one,
Oh,
and then there's. Well, I'm gonna start at the bottom of the barrel.
all right.
By far the worst one is the cherry, without a
Cherry
doubt.
Kit Kat.
Yeah, I think the reason why is it tastes too much like maybe cough syrup.
That's true. Like Robitussin, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it is not it's not high up there. I'll tell you what my favorite one is, only
All right.
because of what it is. It's the sake. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, this is pure adult candy. This is it was great. And then there was also
You
this is
should send a video of you eating it to Paul.
I told him that I was getting some Kit Kat sake, and Paul's like, I might actually drive down there for that. uh, and then the two in the middle, there was a wasabi one I thought too, but I couldn't
That's
find it.
right. There's a wasabi one.
I think, to be honest, the wasabi was my favorite by far.
It's interesting, right? It has that kick, but
Yep.
it's not spicy or anything.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting like really overpowering flavor, and it wasn't. They did pretty well. And then floating in the middle, the strawberry, and then just the melon. They're fine, but they're middle of the road, if you will. But
One thing I'm always surprised with is like you go to Japan or other countries for that matter is you have this amazing variety of flavors of candies that I think originated here, right? Kit Kat's American candy brand, unless I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But you don't find these things here.
No, and it's crazy because you would think, yeah, well, I mean, it's all there is a little bit of English on the back of these. I was looking to see if it said where these were explicitly made, but I'm guessing they're all made in Japan. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think some of these actually would do pretty well here in the States, and you never know. You never know. But Japan always has the craziest flavors of everything. Like there's really weird flavors of Pepsi I've seen, and this might.
Yeah, my son had clear Coke, so
Wow.
it looks like water, but it tastes
Yeah.
like.
That's one of the things that like screws with the senses, I think, because you go to take it and you're like, it's like what the, so
Good times though, good times. Well,
good.
always good to be back. Always good to chat with you. Lots going on, right?
Oh, there's always stuff. There's stuff in Teams going on. And Teams is obviously the hotbed. The more and more that's happening with Teams, which we'll dive into in the second half of this, you can just see that Microsoft is putting just about everything they have from a marketing standpoint, from a muscle standpoint, into Teams. But before we dive into that one, Dux, I got a really interesting email from. Can you give me permission to use his last name? But Kevin sent me an email, and he said that he's been at his company. I believe this is going to be his third year. He's a junior system administrator, and he feels that he is ready to move up to that next level. His annual review, he said, is in July, and he wants
right.
to know, and this will blossom into a bigger topic. He wants to know how to go about approaching during that review to get a raise and go to a senior system administrator. And
Sure.
we get a lot of content on or emails from Petri about soft skills because it's easy, it's easy to go to SharePoint or to Google or whatever and say how to install SharePoint 2019. It's not so easy to go and say, hey,
How to
what are the
ask for a
soft
raise.
skills? Yeah, what are the soft skills that are needed for the IT pro? And this, starting at soft skills or start wherever you want. What is your take on this kind
Sure.
of stuff?
Well, first things first, right? Especially in this day and age of the cloud, the role of IT, we're now not, IT's not the back office, kitchen cook anymore, right? I feel like because of the cloud, a lot of the mundane day-to-day IT stuff's now taken care of. I don't need to, put in the service pack for SQL Server or Windows, because if it's in the cloud, I don't have to deal with that.
Right.
So IT's role is now becoming more front and center, more partner with the business, being a business enabler. So soft skill is very, very important, right? Negotiation skills, public speaking, presentation, all that good stuff. But specific to your letter, I have, I would say, 5 tips for Kevin as to how to approach asking for a raise or asking for that title bump. First and foremost is go out there and research for that same role that you want to be, a senior systems admin and what the responsibilities entail. And if that's something that you're ready to take on, just do a reality check, right? And then along the same lines, when you do your research, you can go to, job sites, Monster, Glassdoor, PayScale. You can actually look at the salary range and then compare it to what you're making today. I don't know what your salary is, but look at that, right? So that's step one. Research on the new role you're thinking about, and then what the salary range looks like, what the responsibilities are. Step 2 is look at your existing role and think about some of the wins that you've brought the company or brought your boss above and beyond your day job, right? It's one thing if you fulfill your job responsibilities, but it's another if you've gone above and beyond for a certain project, or you took one for the team, and then jot those down. I'm sure you'll come up with a couple, 5, 10, what have you. So that's step 2, right? Anything you've done above and beyond in the last 3 years. And then third is think about the additional workload you're willing to take on. Because if you ask, hey, boss, give me a pay bump or a title bump without any additional responsibilities, it might not come across as appealing to your boss, right? So be ready and say, hey, boss, if you promote me to be a senior systems admin, on top of what I'm doing now, I'll take on this other work, etc. Next step is write your pitch down. Step 4, think about as you meet with your boss, right? Bring up the fact that you've done these extra stuff in the last 3 years. This is the market rate, maybe not specifically the salary rate, but talk about the type of bump you're looking for, 10% more, 20% more, what have you, and make sure it's in line with industry rates. And then also talk about the additional responsibilities you're willing to take on. And then number 5, schedule the meeting and do it.
Yep. Yeah, there's a couple of things you're hitting in on there that I think are really key. And one thing that'll add, first off, I'm a very big believer that you got to chase your own destiny. And if you truly feel like you're ready for this, create that plan of action. And I think that's exactly what we're talking about there, is create your plan. And one thing that I was told when I was in a similar situation is think about what you're going to add value in that new position. Create a plan that says, okay, when I get this title bump, and it's very much in line with what you were just talking about, Dux, create that plan, but say, okay, when I become a senior system administrator, I'm going to modify these processes that the juniors are doing to make it more efficient for the company. And that's a huge, huge selling point for getting that promotion, because then you can have the title to go and do that. And if you can unlock more resources for the company, then it's an easier thing for your manager. Because Dux, correct me if I'm wrong, but most managers just can't turn around and say, okay, I'm promoting you. It's typically a process.
100%. And the key thing too is when you ask for a raise or a bump, talk more about your performance, right? Don't come across as like, I really need the money, you got to give me the bump. While it may be true, it doesn't resonate as well. So talk about performance and talk about the added value, like what Brad's saying, that you can provide and you can bring the organization.
Yeah, I think there was a perfect analogy, or if you want to watch it on stage, what was that? It was at Build, where Scott Guthrie and Scott Shainzelman were on stage, and the mic broke, and Scott comes running out, and the red polo runs out and says, let me add some value, and just holds the microphone there.
That's right.
And that's like a perfect thing. It's like, be that person that's going to run out there and add some value, and that is what turns the light bulbs on for management.
Talk about servant leadership, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's interesting to think about the soft skills that IT pros need, because oftentimes just drilled down. It's like, hey, you need to know everything about the latest version of SharePoint and everything else. But Dux, you're much more baked into the corporate world than I am, but there's a lot of just corporate necessities of just being nice and setting up meetings and being able to plan things that go into being just not only a good employee, but just setting yourself up for a good career track.
Sure, and key things like we brought up earlier, right? Like speaking, negotiations, decision making, and even I think it comes down to just the basics, right? Like how do you engage and treat people and interact with people? I think it's very important, especially again in our role as IT.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna because for those who don't know, Dux is in the management group. He works and lives in this kind of a world, and I want to throw a question your way, Dux, and see how you feel about this. Sometimes, and I don't think this is the best way to go, but people will go out and they'll look for a new job. Like this guy could go out and look for a senior system administrator job and then walk into that meeting with his boss and be like, look, here's a job offer from somebody else for that role. Can you match it? How do you feel if somebody did that to you?
Yeah, so this is me, and other leaders may have different take on this. And I tell this to my team. I said, look, and I tell this to all my direct reports, my leadership, and say, if the day comes that you feel like you're not challenged or you're not valued, and you have this inkling or even thought of looking for a different job or a new job, talk to me about it, right? And if it's something I can help with, either elevate your role, find a new role for you, or give a pay bump if appropriate, then I'll do it. Compared to what you just described is, somebody walking my door and say, hey, I found this job, it pays more, so will you match it or not? I'm not keen on that. I feel like you're trying to hostage me. You're trying to, take it or leave it kind of thing. If it comes to that situation, I typically tell people, well, good for you. Have a good life. See you.
Yeah. And my wife preaches this all the time, is that the main reason people leave a job is not because of the work, it's because of the people. And so that's a very important thing, especially if you like the people that you work with.
Oh, yeah.
That is huge. And in that respect, I fully agree with you, Dux. Definitely go to management. Like, look, I'm doing my job. It's getting all done, and I'm doing it in 4 hours. Give me, challenge me. And that's also a very good way to get a promotion in the long run too.
Right. And especially now, the workforce today, right? I don't know if you've been seeing a lot of this. The mindset of the workforce that's coming in, they talk about the millennial generation or even the next generation. Money, while it's important, it's not on top of the list. It's the culture of the organization, it's a sense of fulfillment and sense of contribution to society, and then certainly money comes into play. But the pay is never on top of the list of priorities for anybody looking for a job or working at an organization.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because my last career was in consulting, which was a very rigid environment, right? You had to get so many billable hours. You had to be at a client on a certain day. And when I was exiting that, you're right. It wasn't money that I was chasing. I was chasing flexibility because I had just had a child and I was going back to graduate school. And so flexibility was much more important than money at almost every level.
Sure.
And so it's, I think to your point exactly, you got to make your priorities known internally. And I can tell you that money is not everything by any account anymore.
Now, if somebody would pay you $10 million every month, that's a different story, right?
I would eat all the cherry Kit Kats for $10 million a month every day of the week because you wouldn't have to do too many months to. The Kit Kats make their way back in. So
that's right.
Interesting stuff. Dux, a couple things coming up, and I know you're going to at least be at one, but just in case other people are going to be there, are you going to be at Inspire and Ignite? Where are you traveling?
Both. So at Inspire, I'm grateful. I'm presenting a bunch of sessions at Inspire. Speaking of soft skills, I have a presentation on how to be a killer public speaker. Right.
There
so
you
I
go.
have a presentation on that. And really sharing tips and tricks on doing presentations, technical presentations. I have a session on AI, I have a session on first-line workers and Dynamics 365. So tons of good stuff at Inspire going on. And this year they've Combined Ready. It's the Microsoft internal sales kickoff. So there's a lot of people that's going to be in Vegas. And then I'll also be at Ignite. So at Ignite, I was notified I'm one of the featured speaker. So if you look at the list of speakers, you see Satya there, a bunch of Microsoft folks, and again, I'm thankful that I'm part of that esteemed crew. So I'll be there as well. So I assume you'll be at Ignite, right?
Yeah, and Dux and I were talking right before the show. Typically, I do go to Inspire, but this year Microsoft is bundling it with TechReady. And because TechReady is an internal thing, and because Microsoft doesn't like it when I talk to internal people, I'm not invited to Inspire. But I will definitely be at Ignite. And actually, we're going to try to do this podcast, I believe, at Ignite. We've requested time at their live podcast booth. They're still working through the logistics of it, but once we iron out these details, we are.
Dude, why don't we? I don't know if they'll let us, but why don't we do like a cooking show? It's enterprise dish. We should have like live demo of something.
Duck's cooking up some lobster.
Or Kit Kat.
Or Kit Kat. Yeah. These people I've known these people for now because this will be my third year doing podcasts live from there. And they typically don't shy away from this stuff. So it would be. All right. I'm down for anything. It'll be. All right.
As long as it's legal, nobody gets arrested, we'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of nobody getting arrested, this is a terrible transition. But Dux, there's a lot of stuff going on. Microsoft obviously owns LinkedIn. And for people looking for those soft skills, looking to kind of promote themselves, LinkedIn's a great way to do it. It's kind of your public resume. And I'm curious, I personally don't use it a ton. I definitely am on it. But how do you use LinkedIn?
Boy, LinkedIn is an integral part of my social arsenal, if you want to put it that way. Twitter is one, but LinkedIn is a big part of my professional tool set. So one way I use it often is when I meet somebody new, be it from a meeting or a conference and whatever, I would say, hey, do you mind if I connect with you on LinkedIn? So just the last 2 days, I was in a leadership summit in Baltimore. I've connected with a lot of people right away on LinkedIn, right? So that allows me to keep in touch with folks and see what's going on, all that good stuff. So when I meet somebody, I connect with them on LinkedIn. Number two is if I have long form posts more around tips and tricks, ideas, I would post it on LinkedIn as well. Because especially from a professional perspective, it demonstrates and highlights my expertise and, more importantly, what my company can offer and provide potential customers and partners. And then the third way I use LinkedIn is, believe it or not, people respond faster on LinkedIn versus email. Really? Yes. So that's a little secret if you want to get in touch with somebody. So I go to LinkedIn and I go to their messaging. If I need a quick response, especially for folks outside of my organization, I use LinkedIn. I notice the response time is much faster versus email.
Do you think that's just because we don't like email anymore?
No, I think because there's just so it's not that people don't like email. There's just so much stuff in the inbox. Yeah. And today, everybody has a LinkedIn app on their mobile device, right? So if you drop a message in LinkedIn, it'll just light up one message, and people tend to respond, in my experience, faster compared to email.
Yeah, and that's probably true for myself, except instead of LinkedIn, it's definitely Twitter DMs. If people message me on Twitter, I'm much more likely to respond. I think and this is not necessarily a great mindset, but a lot of when I look at email, it's all company internal stuff. It's projects that I'm working on. It's tasks that I'm working on. It's not so much external communication. What it sounds like is you use LinkedIn for just mostly external communication, which makes sense, and that's why you probably get a better response rate.
Yeah, 100%. And in the I use Twitter the same way. In fact, for those watching, Brad and I communicate more on Twitter DM versus email. But not everybody's on Twitter though, so that's something I realize. Especially a lot of customers I work with, like in government, right? A lot of them aren't on Twitter. So LinkedIn, at least I know most of everyone's on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's not to take this on a wild tangent, but that's one of the interesting challenges we actually have with, say, Petri and even on Thurrott, is that Twitter by volume market share is very, very tiny. And there's a lot of good content on there, and it's trying to figure out how do you make sure that your entire audience sees that because it's good stuff, and those are one of the challenges that we face because there is so much good stuff on Twitter. There's also a lot of annoying and bad stuff. Don't get me wrong. You got to set your filters up right, but yeah.
So here's my observation, though, from a business and professional development perspective. The customers, most of my customers or our customers we work with, they're really not on Twitter.
Really?
They're on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Who's on Twitter, though, are industry experts, peers, thought leaders, and partners where, if we're on Twitter, right, people see me on Twitter, people see AvePoint on Twitter, it just keeps us top of mind. For example, okay, like today, I posted something on Twitter and you favorited it, right? So now oh, Dux did something with the city of Richmond.
Yep.
So if it does come up in some other conversation, oh, you may want to check out this thing that they did. So that that's a good thing, right? So it keeps us top of mind with industry influencers and peers and partners. But then from a customer perspective, most of them are on LinkedIn. So myself and even AvePoint, we post more thought leadership, educational stuff, not only on Twitter, but we do it on LinkedIn as well.
Interesting. And that's a good general breakup of about where you should be posting. Granted, I know I need to be more active on LinkedIn, but it's just for some reason I just gravitate towards Twitter. I think it's because it's more real time than anything else, and LinkedIn's a little bit. It runs at a slower pace. It's also targeting a different market. It's not trying to be the fire hose of everything like Twitter is. Yeah, no, it's with Microsoft paying $26.2 billion for it. They're going to make sure we all use it. I can guarantee it.
Oh yeah, I mean you're starting to see a lot of the slowly technologies creeping in. Like today, I saw a blog post around LinkedIn translation capabilities is powered by Microsoft AI and Microsoft translation capabilities, which makes sense.
Yeah, and that it's actually real interesting to see how they're starting to blend all those different things together. And I'll be curious to see how they keep. They're only going to make these things tie in more systematically. What I'm waiting for too is, and I don't know if it's coming. I don't have any inside information. But when your Microsoft Outlook account and your LinkedIn account are just one and the same.
Yeah, and there's a couple of scenarios. I think they did this in one event where it will tell you, for example, Inspire and Ignite's coming up, and then you register on Inspire and Ignite. You put your LinkedIn profile. It will tell you who in your LinkedIn network is in the event as well, which I think it makes sense.
See, now that's a real super useful functionality right there, because anybody who's ever gone to a conference, especially if your company's just sending you and you get there and it's like, oh my God, who do I know? What, you go to that always the first day Mixer event and there's 2,000 people there and it's like, who am I going to hang out with? But that actually, that is smart.
Yeah, and it gives you the opportunity to meet people face to face, right? 'Cause especially these days, back when LinkedIn started, we're very protective as to who we connect with. But these days, because just the nature of how things are, it's easier to connect with people on LinkedIn. So imagine if you go to Ignite or Inspire and say, hey, these 10 people are there. And to go, hey, I see you're in Inspire. Let's grab a drink, or let's get together, or let's attend this session, or whatnot.
Yeah. It'll be. I need to play around with it more and just get more involved and figure out, because one of the primary things that I do is I generate content. I generate hopefully insightful and content, definitely insider content, and starting to tap into that network, because there's it's a good place to be hanging out, especially if you're looking for a new career and you can make new contacts and all that kind of stuff.
Definitely.
All that. All right. Diving into Teams here for the back of the book, Dux. Obviously, Teams doing exceptionally well. Microsoft made an announcement this week that is now easier to archive everything. Now, my question here for you, Dux, and I don't know if you know this. I should have I should have qualified that before I asked you.
Pop quiz.
Yeah. Do you know the discoverability of anything that's in the archive? Because some people were asking about GDPR and some other random things that and being audited, that if things are archived, how easily you can go back and discover them if needed.
Sure. I would, again, I haven't dug deep into discovering archives, but I would suspect it's going to be part of the whole e-discovery engine and capability of Office 365. So whatever it could do for email, for OneDrive, for SharePoint, I'm sure it's the same engine technology that would be applied to archives with Teams.
Yeah.
I think it's a good functionality. I don't know how much have you guys progressed in using Teams, but we use Teams day in, day out,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of Teams that we don't use anymore because either the project is done or the event is done. So this way, it's a good way to kind of set it aside and not just leave it hanging, sitting there.
Yep, fully agree. Because well, I think we did at least half a podcast on just maintaining that, make sure your Teams doesn't get out of control. And this is definitely a core functionality to making sure that, hey, that project's done. Let's archive it
Yeah.
and move on with life.
Yeah, and to your point earlier about Microsoft's pushing Teams heavily, I think last week there's a Gartner paper that came out. It essentially says Teams will be as common as Outlook, and I believe that. I think the day
do
will
too.
come, not soon, that Teams is just like Outlook.
Yeah, no, I tend to believe that, mostly because you can, not fully yet, but I think it's going to get there. You can almost do everything you need almost inside of Teams. And eventually, I think that's just going to be the window that potentially even where Office lives. Like, you just open Teams and then there's just a Word
That's
tab
right.
and you just start typing, or an Excel tab.
Exactly.
And it's just, rather than opening all these different apps, you're just opening different sections and you just have one app that you open. It's one app to rule them all, minus email.
Well, I won't be surprised if they bring email in Teams as well. I'm always wondering why they can't do that. Like add a little,
Yeah.
like, here's all your emails.
Well, gives me places to kind of poke around and just ask them questions, because I talk to those people fairly frequently, especially because they're rolling out features all the time. Teams is the thing to keep your eye on everywhere inside of Microsoft, because I think if you want a promotion, if you go recommend a new Teams feature, I'm pretty sure you would get green lighted on just about anything at this point to kind of keep bolstering that app.
So to the guy, is it Kevin, right? Or Ken asking for promotion earlier?
Yeah.
Make that part of your negotiation. I will implement Teams to the whole organization.
If you haven't done so, that could be
Your ticket to promotion.
it'll also be your ticket to probably a couple headaches, but that's how you move up in life, is
right.
the path to success. I think everybody's probably seen this. It's not a straight line, right? It's that jaggedy mountain looking thing until you finally reach that pinnacle at some point, hopefully.
Yeah.
And then, so Dux, I know you are going to know way more about this than I do, but Microsoft Teams will be available July 17th for U.S. Government Community Cloud. Is that correct?
That's right. So they announced this back in March during Tech Summit here in DC, but Teams will finally be available in GCC. So for those not familiar, Microsoft essentially has a bunch of different data centers in the US. There's the commercial or public cloud, which most everybody use, or private companies. And then for the US government, since their requirements and compliance needs are much more stringent, there's different government data centers. GCC is the first one. It's Government Community Cloud, used by a lot of the federal civilian agencies, so Teams will be officially available. Now, if you're wondering why does it take longer to have certain features available, because every time Microsoft introduces a new tool or a new workload inside Office 365 into GCC, it has to go through a certain level of certification. Because for one, GCC is FedRAMP compliant. So a lot of these applications will go through the same rigor, and once it's approved, it'll make it available.
And there you go. And that was actually the next, you answered the question before I even asked it. That's how good Dux is. I was just curious why it takes so long for some of that, but obviously the certs.
And then there's two other government clouds. There's the DoD cloud, which has L5 certification, which is much more stringent for defense. And then there's the secret cloud for intelligence agencies.
The secret cloud. Well, I mean, it makes sense. I just keep thinking it's just a funny name, but obviously we know why it's called the secret cloud.
That's why we can't talk about it anymore.
Interesting. Dux, well, we're wrapping it up here. And as always, we like to do at the end of the show, the Dux Dish. What's on your mind? What's going on in your world? What's happening, man?
So what's happening? Boy, Teams is happening. So it comes back to Teams. We're working a lot with a lot of organizations, and everybody's moving Office 365. But Teams seems to be top of mind in really, working with customers to ensure that they make the most out of it. So just today, before our call, I had a webinar with 700 people registered.
Wow.
Just talking about how do you make sure you govern Teams well. So been working a lot with customers around that. We have an ebook on when to use what, Teams versus SharePoint versus all the other tools, and then we're hosting Teams workshops across not only the U.S. but around the world with our Microsoft colleagues on how to ensure Teams governance. So that's top of mind and exciting. A lot of good stuff that's going on. Yeah, and I think it'll continue on till at least the next 6 months.
Fantastic. And there's going to be, like you said, Inspire is this month. There's going to be, I think, not a huge busy month, good English, Brad. A very busy month, but there's definitely going to be, I think, a lot of content coming out probably the middle of this month when, Microsoft has a show. They want to announce things. And so
100%.
I would not be surprised if we hear more about Teams, especially at Inspire, because that is a big push for them the past 12 months.
And the other area that's a big push, and I see a lot of the writing on the wall, is around their first line workers SKU, and Teams is a big part of it too. So I'm sure more of that's going to come out. So stay tuned.
You are absolutely right. Well, Dux, as always, what is the best way for people to reach you if they have questions, comments, and or concerns?
So best way is Twitter, at MeetDux is my handle, or hit me up on LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to connect with you.
Fantastic, Dux. As always, one, I appreciate the candy because who doesn't love various flavors of Kit Kats? But I also appreciate you stopping by. I know you've got a very busy schedule, and good luck traveling this month. We'll catch you on the backside of that event, probably around the end of July for our next episode here. And as always, folks, thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe. Sign up. It works in all your podcast apps, and we'll catch you right here next time on the Enterprise Dish.
Sayonara.